As a music teacher, I know full well how much goes into planning a big event. The weeks and months of preparation are sometimes staggering, and then the night of the big concert comes. The kids play their best, there's thunderous applause, lots of attaboys, and then the auditorium is empty and quiet. The concert is over. The preparation led to a successful event, and now it's over. What now? Depending on the time of year, we might start preparing new music right away, but at the end of the school year, that's not always the case. Maybe we look at music for future years or play some other things, but the time is kind of an awkward one because school is still going on, but it feels like band is over for the school year. It's almost like we're asking the question, what now? There's something almost magical about a big moment. The energy, the buildup, the way everything aligns just right for a brief sliver of time. Whether it's a holiday like Easter, or a powerful worship service, or a performance, or even just a milestone in life, we often walk away from those experiences feeling inspired, full, and maybe even changed. But then, the music fades. The crowd disperses and the excitement dies down. The lights go down, and you wake up the next morning to something quieter, something more ordinary. Maybe it's the Monday after Easter, or maybe it's just the next chapter. And in that stillness, a question lingers. What now? In this two-part series, we're going to take a look at the what's next. Whether it's coming down from a peak moment, stepping away from something big or meaningful, or moving into a new season. That shift from the peak moment back into everyday life can sometimes feel disorienting. We wonder if the meaning has passed with the moment. We try to hold on to the inspiration, but it slips between the cracks of emails, laundry, and traffic lights. The shift from the comfort of what we know into something new can be terrifying. We wonder if what comes next can be the same, or just as good, or better than what we know. It's easy to think the sacred was in the song. But maybe, just maybe, it's in the silence too. In this first part of our new series, we're going to take a look at the what now. This episode is about the silence after the big moment. The music fades, the sacred in the after. Because when that music dies down, what's left isn't emptiness. It's often the beginning of something deeper. And if we're willing to listen, the quiet can speak louder than the song ever did. There's a moment nobody really prepares you for. When the celebration is over and the crowd goes home and the noise gives way to silence, it's that space after the crescendo when everything has already happened and you're just left standing in it. It's not necessarily bad, just different, quieter, maybe a little uncertain. And that moment, oddly enough, is where a lot of us get stuck. Sometimes we expect that the afterglow of a powerful moment, whether it's a spiritual breakthrough or a creative high or a long awaited accomplishment, will carry us effortlessly into whatever comes next. But life rarely works that way. There's often a lull, a return to dishes in the sink, unanswered emails, going back to square one, or even just a quiet house. And in that stillness, we start to ask some honest questions. Was it real? Did what happened really matter? What do I do now? This in-between space can be uncomfortable because we're so wired for momentum. We love the feeling of moving forward, of building towards something. But once the moment passes, the adrenaline fades, and our footing feels unsure again, it's in that stillness that we can begin to doubt what just happened. I'm not saying we say it didn't happen, but not because it wasn't meaningful, but because we haven't yet learned how to carry it forward. And yet, there's something sacred about this stillness. It strips away the performance, the emotion, the expectations, and it reveals what remains. It's a space where depth is possible, where we can hear whispers that we missed in the noise. When I think about this idea, I can't help but think about Elijah. His account in First Kings in the scriptures talks about when he's waiting to encounter God, and it doesn't come in the wind, the fire, the explosion, or the earthquake. It comes in a gentle whisper. Sometimes that whisper only comes when everything else quiets down. In the stillness, we're invited to take what we experienced and let it settle, not just in our minds, but in our bones. And that takes time. It takes silence. It takes being okay with not always having something new and exciting to move on to right away. It takes being okay with that great thing that just happened now being over and needing to allow time for something else, or for right now, nothing at all. I want you to think about a garden for a moment. I seem to have lousy luck with flowers, vegetables, and anything that requires a green thumb. We have a lot of animals in our neighborhood, and they tend to find their way to eating those plants, even if I put them up and cover them. Oftentimes, I will go to the store and buy a plant already grown, put it in the ground, and just go from there. But think about when a plant or a flower starts as a seed. The beauty of the flowers, the deliciousness of those tomatoes, the aroma of that basil and mint isn't only in the moment it blooms or is ready to be picked. It's in the stillness that allows the roots to grow. And maybe that's part of the gift of these after moments. They give us the chance to ask ourselves a question. What did that moment teach me? Or maybe it asks you, what am I carrying with me now? It's not about recreating the experience. It's about allowing it to shape who we are becoming. The music may have faded, but the meaning doesn't have to. Jesus himself modeled this kind of rhythm. He had many moments of incredible teaching and miracles, but he also stepped away into solitude, into quiet, into stillness. It wasn't because he was avoiding people or hiding from purpose. It was because he knew that clarity often comes not in the crowd, but in the quiet. If it was true for him, it's worth paying attention to it in our own lives. It's so very important for us to understand that the emotional letdown or quiet that follows a big moment is a normal and healthy part of the human experience. Sometimes it's that we need to take the pressure off ourselves to feel amazing all the time. That dip after the high isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's simply a part of the emotional rhythm of life. Just like the body needs rest after exertion, the heart and mind need space after meaningful experiences. Sometimes people feel like they've lost it or like they've suddenly disconnected from meaning or purpose. It's especially common after emotional highs, but it's not brokenness. It's simply a change in pace. The transition from high momentum moments to everyday life takes time. It's like your internal system is recalibrating, processing, absorbing, and figuring out how to integrate that experience into real life. So, in getting to the root of this topic, I think it begs an answer to a very important question. Why do we struggle with the after? I think one of the reasons is that we're conditioned to chase what's next. Some of us are wired to always be on the go. I'm somebody who always has to be doing something. It's like one project ends and I have to start another one, or maybe I have to keep 4 or 5 going at one time just to feel busy. We live in a world that celebrates productivity and momentum. When something ends, whether it's a holiday has passed, a project is finished, or a performance is over, or even some major spiritual high happens, our first instinct is often the title of today's episode. The music fades. What now? Not because we're ungrateful, but because we're uncomfortable sitting still. We fear that if we're not moving forward, we're falling behind. And I think part of this comes from how we've been taught to measure meaning. We often equate significance with visibility. I want to say that again. We often equate significance with visibility. If there's no crowd, no applause, no wow moment, it must not matter. But that's simply not true. Some of the most powerful growth happens in the unseen. As a music teacher, I think about it often because my groups give performances. But how many times do we see the beginner instrument lesson when the kids are making that first sound and we have those squeaks that are coming and those hits that are not at the right time and we think, will this ever get better? And we see them in the performance and think, wow, those kids are great. But if it wasn't for those beginners, if it wasn't for those moments that we were learning and struggling, we wouldn't get to where we are. Some of that most powerful growth happening in the unseen. And yet, when the fireworks are over, we wonder if we've missed something or if something is missing in us. Another reason we struggle is the emotional contrast between those big moments and what comes after. Big moments create big feelings: joy, adrenaline, connection, awe. But after they pass, there's often a kind of emotional whiplash. Suddenly, we're back to the normal tasks of life and trying to remember what day it is. That contrast can feel like disappointment, even if there's nothing actually wrong. It's not that life is worse now, it's just that the mountaintop view makes the valley feel way more narrow. We also tend to, for a lack of a better term, romanticize the high points. We replay them in our minds, trying to hold on to them as if that's all we should ever experience. But in doing so, we can very easily miss what's unfolding in the present. Life becomes a chase for the next high instead of a steady journey through every season. Joyful, ordinary, and everything in between. And here's something else. We struggle with the after because endings can feel a little like loss. And I'm not trying to compare this to grief, but even in the experiences, when they're over, those experiences were good. And even if they end really well, there's a part of us that grieves. We grieve the passing of the moment, the energy of it, the version of ourselves that we were during it. And even in small ways, that grieving isn't something we're always taught how to do. I mentioned being somebody who always has to be busy. I think we struggle with the after because we rarely give ourselves permission to rest. We don't give that to ourselves. We tell ourselves we need to make something of the moment instead of simply letting it be what it was. We turn it into a task instead of letting it become a turning point. Let me say that again. We turn it into a task instead of letting it become a turning point. Rest isn't waste, though. Instead, it's often wisdom. It's the pause that allows clarity, the breath that helps carry meaning into that next step. Spiritually speaking, we might think that a quiet heart means distance. But the truth is, faith isn't only built in loud declarations or passionate worship. It's shaped in the quiet trust that says, I'm still here. I still believe. I'm still showing up. That kind of faith might not be flashy, but it's deep. And it lasts. So, now what? We've talked about all of this, and we know the time exists, and we know that there's something that can come from the time after. But what do we do? How should we react? How do we handle the time? If the moment has passed, but the meaning still matters, then the question becomes, how do we carry it forward? How do we take what we felt, what we learned, what we glimpsed in a meaningful season, and let it shape the days that follow? It's not about recreating the high or clinging to a fleeting feeling. It's about allowing that moment to leave an imprint that guides us, even when the emotional glow has faded. And I think one powerful way we can do this is through being intentional. If If you've been a long-time listener, you hear me talk about intention all the time. The thing is, we often wait for clarity to strike, but sometimes it's our decision to live intentionally that gives the experience meaning. Maybe you felt more connected to your purpose, or more aware of others, or more grounded in your faith during that high moment. But what small habit or practice or lasting thing could help you hold on to that awareness? Not perfectly, maybe not even permanently, but just enough to keep you aligned with what matters. Carrying the meaning forward might also look like telling the story. Not the polished highlight reel version, but the honest one. What moved you? What shifted in you? What surprised you? Sharing these reflections with a friend, a journal, or even just a quiet thought turns the moment into something alive. Stops being just a memory and starts becoming a message. And sometimes it's as simple as gratitude. Not a quick thank you, but a posture of appreciation that lingers. Gratitude doesn't mark what happened, it anchors it. It says, that was real, that mattered, and I'm thankful I got to be there. Gratitude keeps us from racing to the next thing and teaches us to carry beauty, even quietly, into what's next. There's also something to be said for letting the experience deepen your empathy. When we've walked through something that moved us or changed us, we often become more attuned to the people around us. Carrying meaning forward can look like living differently because of what you've seen or you've felt. You don't have to make a big speech. Sometimes simply showing up with more grace, more kindness, or more patience is the most powerful way to live out what mattered. Spiritually speaking, the after season is an invitation to observe and follow. That's the word Jesus used in John 15, to remain, to dwell, to stay connected, not sprinting from one spiritual high to the next, but settling in, like branches staying close to the vine. Carrying the meaning forward is less about striving and more about staying close, remembering that transformation isn't a one-time event, but a lifelong process. Never underestimate the power of remembering. In Scripture, God constantly called his people to remember, not just the facts of what happened, but the faithfulness behind it. Remembering helps keep the moment alive without getting stuck in it. It lets us revisit the truth without trying to relive the feeling. It becomes a well we can draw from when the days get dry. Well, if you feel like this all may be a struggle to realize, to adopt, to live out, give yourself the freedom to grow slowly. Just because something felt big doesn't mean its lasting impact will always feel dramatic. Sometimes the most meaningful change happens in the small, quiet shifts, in the way we think, how we speak, what we choose next time. Those mountaintop moments might spark it, but it's the everyday faithfulness that sustains it. Carrying the meaning forward isn't a race, it's a walk, it's a process, and every step counts. So maybe for you, the music has faded. Maybe that big moment has passed. The candles are blown out, the chairs are stacked, the calendar is flipped, and yet something lingers. A whisper in your spirit that says it just wasn't about the day, it was about the becoming. Who you were becoming in the midst of it, and who you're still becoming now. If you're sitting in that in between space, don't rush out of it. Let it speak to you. Let it settle. The silence after the song doesn't mean the music didn't matter. It just means the echo has moved inward into your habits, your hopes, your relationships, your way of being in the world. What if this quiet moment is the doorway? What if now is when the real work begins? Not the kind of work that burns you out, but the kind that builds you up. What if you asked yourself, what stirred in me that's worth pursuing? What needs to stay with me even as the scenery changes? So here's the challenge for you. Don't just mark the moment. Move with it. Let it shape, a decision, a conversation, a rhythm into your life. And second, give yourself the grace to walk it out slowly. This isn't a sprint towards spiritual achievement. It's a steady unfolding, a quieter kind of courage. You don't have to manufacture something profound. Just show up with a willing heart and trust that the God who met you in the mountaintop moment is just as present, maybe even more so, in the field you're walking now. Because the beauty of transformation isn't that it all happens at once, it's that it all stays with you, even when the music fades. And maybe that's where we'll leave it for today. Sitting in the quiet, letting the echo of the moment settle into something lasting. But next time, we're going to take a small but meaningful step forward. Because once the stillness is spoken, we're left with a simple but powerful invitation to start again. Not to erase where we've been, but to carry it with us into what comes next, with purpose, with grace, and with the kind of courage that whispers, "I'm ready." So join me for part 2 of this series, The Power of Start Again, next time, because sometimes there isn't something big, but a something else. And the most transformational journeys begin not with a roar, but with a quiet decision to begin anew. We'll talk about that and more next time. Remember, friends, if you find yourself in the after, don't rush through it. Don't panic when it feels slower or quieter. Maybe the most meaningful transformation isn't in the moment that made your heart race, but in the one that invites your soul to breathe. As always, I really do appreciate you tuning in this week. We'll see you back here next time. We'll have more for you on cue.